when we get those kiddos here to watch our games, like it's great because, when they come up and like ask for a photo or ask to take or get our autograph or ask for a puck or something like that, like it might mean the world to them, but it means as much to me as it does to them.
Hello and welcome back to Rinkside Rundown, the podcast that brings you inside the world of women's hockey, one story at a time. I'm your host, Chris Sinclair, and today I am absolutely thrilled to be joined by Kaitlin Finnegan, co-captain of the University of Delaware Blue Hens, who are competing in their first season in Division I NCAA women's hockey. Kaitlin, welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing great. That was quite the introduction. I appreciate you having me on.
Of course, yes. This is a long time coming, and I am absolutely thrilled that I finally get a chance to sit down with you and learn a little bit more about you, hear your story, where you started, and now where you are right as we speak. So, as we do every time on the show, we start with your beginnings. So, I want you to take me back to your beginning and tell me, how did hockey first enter your life, and what made you fall in love with the game?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Actually, so, I think just being from Kansas, hockey is not, the most popular sport. Um, it's pretty hard to find ice rinks in the area, but thankfully we had a professional hockey team when my brother was actually playing, just in the area. And my parents kind of threw him in it. They never played themselves. They still don't know how to skate. But they went to one of those games and they fell in love with it. They're like, wow, like the pace of this game is just like no other sport. And they were like, let's get our kids involved in this. So they threw my brother in it, and then he's 5 years older than me. And I think just being, the younger sibling, I just wanted to do everything that he did and kind of just follow his footsteps. And I think his love for the game just naturally kind of fell down to me. And, I just love the pace of play and just everything kind of involved with it.
Yeah, and it's worked out well for you so far. So I think that was the good decision. And you mentioned it because when I saw that you're from Kansas, I thought to myself, I like Kansas isn't really necessarily the first place that comes to mind when I think of hockey. You mentioned some of those maybe obstacles or some of those challenges early on in terms of being able to pursue that. But could you maybe dive in a little bit more and talk about what it was like to grow up there and to pursue hockey and despite maybe some of the obstacles or some of those challenges, maybe the fact that it was so low key there, how you were still able to overcome all of those things and end up where you are now, which I can't wait to get into as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, like I said, having that team back home, we had that rink that was like 15 minutes away. And they started out as a professional team, like in the CHL, like way back when. And I think naturally it just started to kind of trickle down in levels. But it was a USHL team. And then when I was kind of around, it was a NAHL team in the juniors. So my family actually would billet a lot of the players on that team. And I think just having them around, it was like really fun and cool experience just to like kind of learn from them also and kind of have them as older brothers. But also, like I said, my brother was, one of my biggest role models. And I think having him around really pushed me. But it was definitely a sport that we had to make, kind of jumps to like continue to pursue at the highest level. Even though we did have that team in town, they didn't have like youth hockey or travel hockey for us to play there. So me and my brother, we started out playing in Kansas City, which was about an hour away. And so, I can't thank my parents enough for everything that they've done because, like, they would drive, twice a week just for practice, like an hour there, an hour back home. So, they did a lot for us there. And eventually, when I did make that jump to girls hockey, I, ended up going to St. Louis to play. And before I started billeting there, I had to make that jump too, just because, again, hockey's not a popular sport in Kansas. You kind of got to find your way. And that was kind of my route. But before I ended up billeting at 15 years old, I would do travel weekends and stuff where we would just have practice weekends. Half of our team was out of town, and my parents would drive 4 hours, just for practice weekends. So, it was definitely a unique experience. Like, a lot of people in Kansas, they play basketball and football. It's kinda right in your
Yeah.
backyard. But hockey was somewhere you had to, travel quite a bit for.
Yeah, I was going to say when I think of Kansas, football is the first thing that comes to mind. Hockey, I don't know would be on that list, to be totally honest with you.
Honestly,
Uh,
yeah, and I think I got a lot of weird looks at school. Like I said, I moved away at 15 to Billet and St. Louis and then Dallas my last year of high school, but I think just through grade school, you'd kinda get weird looks like, "Oh, like, you play hockey? Like, where do you even play?"
Mhm.
And, then you'd, like, go like, you'd miss, like, Thursday and Fridays for tournaments, and they're like, "What do you mean you're going to Minnesota?" Or, "What do you mean you're going to, like, Boston?" Like, there was just, like, very mind-blowing to them that, like, you would travel so far for just, in their eyes, just some little sport.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess then that begs the question: were there ever moments, especially early on, where you said to yourself, you know what, like I like this, the pace, it's the skill level. I love all of those aspects of this game,
Mhm.
but like I don't want to call them obstacles, but like the fact that it just wasn't a big thing, and there was so much travel involved and all of those different things. Did those contribute at any moment to you saying to yourself, maybe I should find a different sport, or was that maybe a driving factor or one of the driving factors as well to encourage you to continue playing and to continue striving to be better?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I did grow up. I played a couple other sports. Like I played soccer and I think softball till a very young age, probably like 10. And so grew up kind of playing that, but eventually my parents were like, "Okay, like you got to pick your sport," type of thing. And again, I think it kind of just falls back to my brother. Like I think I just wanted to do everything that he wanted to do, and to see how passionate he was for the game and to see, like, how successful he was, I was like, I wanna pursue this and I want that for myself as well. And,
Hmm.
I think those obstacles of, like, all the travel and just everything like that, I think seeing him go through it and realizing, like, that's exactly what I wanna do. Um,
Hmm.
I think just, he did the whole billeting thing, in Minnesota as well, and also on the East Coast, and then played junior hockey, which is a little bit different, but I think seeing all the obstacles he went through, I was like, "I wanna do exactly the same thing." Like, there's, like, no obstacle that, he's been through that I can't do as well.
It's that I feel like it's that competitive nature, or some sort of be like just innately being an athlete, because to me, I would have been like, you know what? I gave it a good try and I'm good. But for when you're an athlete, it's something in you, is that drive where, you have to, an obstacle, that's not an obstacle. It's just a bump in the road. Like that sounds like very much your experience, especially early on. Would that be fair to say?
No, yeah, absolutely. I'd say, you're very right on track there, and even though I'll probably bring up my brother a lot here, but, even though we are 5 years apart, like, I feel like we just grew closer, as years went on, and, we just became like, training partners, training buddies, and we would always push each other. I'd say he definitely pushed me more than I pushed him, but we always enjoyed our time together, and he'd always give me pointers on the ice and off the ice. So um, definitely one of my biggest supporters and big role model for me.
I love that. And I love that you helped with a great segue there, because I want to talk about role models. You've mentioned your brother, and clearly still has an impact on your career. Who were some of those other role models, especially the more you got into the game? Did you find yourself gravitating towards a particular player because of how they played, or maybe so it wasn't even someone in hockey, maybe somebody that you met along the way that really inspired you, that you kind of think about in maybe those difficult moments or in those moments of celebration? You're like, yeah, it's because of, a part of that is because of how motivated and how driven they were and how that inspired me. Who were some of those people throughout, even maybe now today? Who were some of those people for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many talented hockey players and athletes just in general, but um, both on the women's and men's
Mm,
side. I think if I had to pick a player just, when I was really young, me and my brother followed was Pavel Datsyuk on the Detroit
Mm,
Red Wings. Um, you know, his English wasn't great, but I think the way he played on the ice, it was just, like, so I don't know. He just, like, put some people his stick handling, like, they called him, like, the magician, and
yeah.
he's just, like, very fun to watch. And I think, like, kinda in that sense, like, I guess you could say a role model, just, like, you'd always try to, like, replicate your game to his or, like, try to, like, take ideas or skills from him.
Mm,
But as far as, like, role models, like, dedication, I know I brought up my brother, he's definitely my biggest role model,
yeah.
but also, like, my parents too. My mom is just, like, someone who's, like, always been super driven and dedicated when it comes to just life in general, and, they've been great role models for me and just, like, kinda teaching me the right way to go about life and just always give it your all, always be driven, and just, like, always be eager to learn.
But now we have to flip the coin, as I mentioned earlier, because now more than ever, you are also in the limelight. You are also in the spotlight now too, right? Not only because it's the first year of at the University of Delaware, but beyond that, the bigger picture here is that women's hockey now more than ever is in that spotlight. So, what does it feel like for you? To be looked at, and there are kids out there who are saying, "You know what? I wanna be exactly like Kaitlin Finnegan." How does that feel, and how do you carry that with you?
Yeah, I think it's, like, super cool. It's a huge honor, honestly, and, you know, when I think we have a great community here, a great youth hockey, like, kinda fan base, and when we get those kiddos here, to watch our games, like, it's great because, you know, when they come up and, like, ask for a photo or ask to take or get our autograph or ask for a puck or something like that, like, it might mean the world to them, but it means as much to me as it does to
Mhm,
them, and, you know, I think just to put a smile on their face and just, you know, if I can, you know, make their day or, you know, make their week, I think that's something that goes a long way for me. I remember being in their shoes and just, like, you know, it's so nervous to go up and, like, ask someone that you look up to, like, if you can get a photo with them or get their autograph, so I know how scary that can be, and, you know, I don't think I'll ever say no to those type of questions. It's a super cool experience, and actually, we had a youth hockey player from St. Louis area when we played Lindenwood, and she had reached out to me with a video just saying how excited she was to see me again and watch our games. So I made sure we brought one of our game pucks down and got a photo with her and, you know, signed the puck. And I think she was really happy. It definitely made my day. So
mhm,
I think just kind of giving back in that sense is something that I always try to, you know, try to do for the community and everything.
mhm. As with any journey, there are always going to be those ups. There are going to be those downs. A bit of a roller coaster at times, for sure. When you're on one of those roller coasters, having those ups and having those downs, what helps you to kind of find your footing and to get back on track and to regain that forward momentum, if you will?
Yeah, definitely. I think something for me is just, you know, using my support system. And I think some of my biggest supporters are my family.
Mhm.
Um, I think playing hockey is one of the best things you could do in life, but it's not always going to be pretty. Like you said, it's going to be a little bit of a bumpy roller coaster.
Yeah.
There's going to be ups and downs, of course. I think if you can lean on your, you know, support system and like always have them in your corner, that's a huge thing that is gonna help you get through those tough times. And then also, I think, you know, we had talked about it earlier, but, you know, I think looking at the bigger picture is something, like, so big. Just when, like, things are going tough or, like, you know, you might think, like, "Oh my gosh, this is the end of the world." You get an injury or, you know, something
Mhm.
happens, you might be like, "Oh, like, this is the worst, like, what's going on?" But I think if you look at the bigger picture, you realize, like, "Oh, like, you know, this is minor. This is gonna be everything's gonna be okay. Everything's gonna work out. And you know, I'm very thankful for my support system. And, you know, it's something that I've always followed is like God has a plan. And, you know, I think that's worked out very well for me. And, you know, just trusting that process.
Well, we talked about it earlier as well, but bumps in the road, right? Like it's just a bump in the road, right? That's all
Yeah,
this is. You're going to be able to figure it out. You've got this far, and look at how great you've been so far. So another bump in the road is just another lesson learned. That's all.
absolutely.
Uh, So I want to talk now, of course, about your collegiate career. And your collegiate career started with Lindenwood,
Mhm.
where you spent 5 seasons. What, before we get into what those experiences were like, obviously there are so many options out there. And you could, I mean, pursue any number of those programs, and and all of them are exceptionally great programs.
Mhm.
What made you feel like Lindenwood was going to be that right step for you as you launched your collegiate career?
Yeah, no, great question. I think, I had mentioned earlier, just playing in St. Louis I played for the Lady Blues there, 12U through 16U. So I think just kind of having Lindenwood in our backyard in a sense, like we were able to go to a lot of their games. So I was very familiar with the school in general. And then also it was the closest Division I program to home for me, being from Kansas. So that was, a big standout factor to me. I would say I'm a pretty big homebody. I love being close to home. So that was kind of at the top of my list. And then my brother actually ended up going to Lindenwood as well. So when he committed there, it just felt like the perfect fit. And thankfully, I was getting recruited by them when I was at St. Louis. And like I said, close to home. My brother was there. I ended up going to school with him for 3 years at Lindenwood, despite the age gap and everything. But it just felt like the right fit. Like I said, super close with my family. My brother's going there, only 4 hours away from home. It just felt like the right fit.
When you look back on your time with Lindenwood, what lessons during that period of time do you find yourself maybe leaning upon now, most at in your new venture, if you will, at the University of Delaware?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's, quite a few lessons that I take from Lindenwood and bring here. I think just, there were there were some rough seasons at Lindenwood just as far as, the record went and, we didn't get as many wins as we had hoped for. And I think, that you can compare that to maybe our season here at Delaware. Just not getting, the wins that we had maybe hoped for, but just, continuing to show up every day at practice and just like continuing to give it your all. Um, I think a big thing here is like our attitude and effort, like the kind of the controllables. And
Mhm.
even when things aren't going your way, and the wins and losses, like you can always control your effort and attitude. And, that just makes showing up to the rink that much more enjoyable, especially when everyone's on the same page. So,
Yeah, and I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but at the same time, like you're laying a foundation, especially at Delaware right now, and it's those foundational. I always obviously like a foundation. When you think about like a home, a
mhm,
foundation is an awfully important part of that home in order to ensure its longevity. So that's all you're doing there, right? You're just building a strong foundation so that you can have many, many, many years of growing success at Delaware. So that's the way I look at it. Speaking of Delaware. Let's get to it. Let's get to Delaware because it's obviously where you are right now, and it's an exciting, exciting time. So, alongside Tiana McIntyre, you're the first captains of the University of Delaware women's hockey. What does that mean to you to be? I want to say entrusted. Maybe that's over dramatizing it, but entrusted with such an important part of their history, their inaugural season. You're the inaugural co-captains. What does that
mhm.
mean to you?
Yeah, I think it's a very big honor and it's something that's not taken for granted at all. And I think we just have such a great community here and I think just the support from them and just the athletic department, the university in general, like everyone is super proud to have this inaugural team here, on campus, and it just makes me that much more proud, to have such a big role here on this team. And like you kinda said, just laying that foundation, it means a lot, and I know it's gonna go a long way. And just to be part of the first team here and be one of the co-captains. It's a huge honor, and it's something that, I will definitely not take for granted.
And you can hold on to that for the rest of your life, and that's a very prestigious thing to have. So I appreciate that. Um, we kind of touched on it just a moment ago around development and growth, but I want to know specifically for yourself and this group at Delaware, where have you seen the most amount of growth? Because as you said, like and this goes with any program, any league, very, very rarely do you have immediate success but it's about building something long term. So the immediate success, that's a great byproduct, but it's
Mhm.
about, like we've talked about, building that foundation for yourself and for that group, for your group. Where have you seen the most amount of growth? Where have you seen the most amount of development? And maybe where are those surprises? What surprised you so much so early on in this process?
Yeah, I mean, I think jumping into a new program, you're kinda like, "Oh, what's the team gonna look like?" And I think the biggest, surprise was hearing that we're gonna have 17 freshmen on the team.
Mm,
I think you're like, "Oh, wow, it's gonna be a very young team," not a ton of experience at the college level, and then with myself included, we had the 4 transfers. I think as the year went on, a lot of maturity,
mhm,
was gained throughout the season, and I think you could say that just from 1st semester to 2nd semester. I think the way we play the game, has improved quite a bit,
mhm.
but I also think something that surprised me was just with such a young group, um, we never quit. It's incredible. Like, uh, sometimes our 3rd period is our best period, and,
Yeah.
even when you're down in games, it could be hard to, like, really continue to have that drive, and, you can't really teach that. So I think it's pretty incredible with such a young group at the college level, to have that drive and just, will not to give up.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up because when you watch the highlights of your games, if you weren't actually looking at the score clock
Mhm.
or the scoreboard, you would have no idea what the score is because there is no change first period, second period, third period to the drive and that I was going to say will to win, but desire to win is there regardless of what period, regardless of the score. So I think that's a really, really key part of the program to highlight for sure. It shows um, not only the maturity of the group as a whole, but that group is co-led by you. So that's also a reflection of how you're the standard that you're helping to instill in that program. Um, Now, this question might be an easier question to answer in hindsight, but we'll see where where it takes us. But has this season so far felt different because especially as someone who has been a part of an existing program to now being a part of a new program, do you think this season or feel that this season is different knowing that it's only year one of building something bigger? Does it feel different?
Um, yeah, I think it definitely feels a little bit different. I think just the excitement that all of the girls have of knowing that, like, we are here to build something bigger than ourselves. And I know that sounds a little cliche, but everyone knows, like, what it takes and, like, what they're kind of doing to set that standard. And I think they know, like, even when they graduate or, for me, like when I leave after this season, like looking at this program like in 5 years, like you're excited to see where it's going to go cuz it's only going to go up. And I think the resources and the people here are so fully invested in that it just brings that much more excitement to it.
Of course. Okay. Before we get to the final segment of today's show, I want to know because you just spoke about it, casually dropped it in that answer just a moment ago. But when we look at your future,
Mhm.
there are now more than ever so many different options, different opportunities for women's hockey players. And I wanted to know for you what excites you most about where your future could go, what that next step could be? You don't have to drop any information here unless you want to break some news. But what excites you most about the next step, next stage of your career?
Yeah, no, I think it's pretty incredible just to see the amount of opportunities that, women's sports is gaining over the past, like, 5 or so years. But especially women's hockey, like, to see the growth of the PWHL and just, like, how many, like, sold out crowds they're getting is absolutely incredible, and it's only helping the women's game. So that's been absolutely amazing, and, I think just also the kind of the leagues overseas have been super fun to watch too. I have a couple friends that play over there. But as far as for me, in the future, I'm obviously going to stay in the sport. Uh,
Mhm.
we'll see if playing's an option or not, but I'd say more long term, I would love to coach at the college level. That's something I've been very passionate about. I'd say ever since I kind of got into the college world, just playing. I've always wanted to coach at this level. So, um, whether that's next year, whether that's, a few years down the road, when I officially am done playing, but I'd say coaching at the college level.
Well, wherever and whenever that happens, you'll absolutely have a positive impact on the game, and I can't wait to cheer you on when you do. Um, we are going to now move to the final segment of today's show, and that's called the final buzzer, which is just a fun, rapid fire way to wrap up the conversation. Are you ready to dive in?
I think so. Yep.
Okay, perfect. What is your go-to pregame meal or snack to get ready for a game?
Oh boy. I'd say pretty basic, probably chicken and pasta, but I gotta have my apple juice on the side.
Okay, apple juice, key to her success. Got it. Writing these things down.
Okay.
What's one thing that you do to get mentally ready before every game?
I try not to stay super superstitious, but I would say I'd like to do a nice routine of just listening to music and then kind of visualizing the game.
Okay, well, you brought up music, so I'm going to go right to that question next. Who's on the playlist? Is there an artist that's played more often than not, or is it a random playlist that's just on shuffle?
I would say it's more random. I'd say I favor more house music. Also really any mix on SoundCloud. Anything to kind of get me in that pump up mood.
Love it. Okay. What's one lesson from hockey that you carry with you that away from the rink?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think one thing one of my old coaches used to say is be a sponge. I think that's just something that I will always carry with me with hockey and kind of away from hockey is just always be eager to learn. Always be you could never really be an expert. Um, there's always room for improvement, always room just to grow and just gain more knowledge.
Great answer. Ooh. What's something that people might not know about Kaitlin Finnegan?
Oh, I'd say I'm a pretty open book, but I bring up my brother quite a bit. I guess something people may not know is me and him kind of started our own little company, skills company for hockey that will, run individual skills over the summers. And then we'll also do summer camps just in the local area, St. Louis, Kansas City, Wichita, Kansas. So,
Oh, I wish I knew about that before this part because I can't ask any follow-up questions. That's really awesome, though. Love that you're still finding ways to continue giving back. If your teammates had to describe you in one word, what do you think that word might be?
well, with a group of 17 freshmen, probably old.
Old. Okay. Well, I know that feeling, so that's fair. Okay. Last one for you then. When you reflect back to being that young kid in Kansas to now, this very moment,
Mhm.
what do you think you would tell her about the journey ahead?
Oh boy, I think I would just say trust the process. There's definitely going to be ups and downs, like we had talked about
Mhm.
previously. And it's going to be a bumpy roller coaster, but I promise, in the end, it's all going to be worth it. And it might not seem like it in the moment, but I promise you it will be.
And look at you now. So that's fantastic. That is a great answer and a great way to wrap up the final buzzer segment of the show and this episode. Kaitlin, as I said off the top, I was super excited to have you on the show, to be able to chat with you. Long time coming. And I am so, so thankful for you taking the time out of your busy schedule to hang out, share your story. And now you're a friend of the show. So now you better believe we're cheering you on, and I can't wait to cheer you on through each one of those milestones and successes that you have. So thanks so much for joining the show today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It was great chatting with you.
And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your fellow hockey fans. Your support helps me to keep bringing you stories just like this one from around the world of women's hockey. I'm Chris Sinclair. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time on Rinkside Rundown.